Thank you for joining us today for The Secret of Love. And today I have a special guest with me who came down from Massachusetts. Christine Higgins is a friend and a colleague. We've done a few seminars together. And Christine has a background in engineering. She's an engineer by profession, as is her husband. And she has found that what I've been talking about on this show has been so helpful in her life with her husband and her children that I thought it would be great. She has wonderful stories, and I thought it would be wonderful for you to hear her stories of how her understanding of what we've been talking about so far, which is that we already are love. We already come from a feeling of love. Underneath negative thinking that we have, there's always this feeling of love. There's no need to grasp for it or reach for it or try to get it from someplace or someone else. And we've also been talking about how our personal thinking, our ego, will get in the way of a feeling of a loving connection. And that's what we're going to focus on today, how to maximize a loving connection through an understanding of how the mind works. So, welcome, Christine Higgins. Thank you so much for being on the show and joining me today.
Thank you for having me here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We always have fun when we talk about the three principles and innate health. So, what would you like to share? What really stood out for you that inspires you, that will help others to hear?
Wow, there are so many things. You know, what's coming to mind is actually something really, really simple that happened this morning. I'm assuming, have you talked about separate realities?
We touched on it a little bit, but
okay.
Yeah.
So I had an experience this morning where I was getting ready to leave the house to come down here, and I asked my husband, I said, can you get me the road conditions? Sorry, I had to get the very specific word because it made a difference. I said, can you get me the road conditions? And so he went and checked, and he's like, well, there's not a lot of traffic, you know, you're looking pretty clear, hour, 30 minutes. And I was like, no, I want the road conditions. I grew up in the mountains in Colorado. To me, the road conditions are, is there ice? Is there snow? What's the temperature going to be like? But what I said to him, I said, no, I don't want that. I said, I'm trying to figure out which vehicle to take. And he just kept telling me the traffic. And I was starting to get frustrated. And then I realized, of course, because of separate realities, because I always experience the world from where I am, and he can't do anything but experience the world from where he is, we very simply just had a different definition of road conditions. So for him, growing up in downtown, living in downtown Boston or near Boston, it's all about the traffic. You know, how long is it going to take? What roads do I need to be on? And for me, it was about what's the temperature? What will the temperature be like this evening? I want to decide if I need to take the car or the big SUV so I can be safe, depending, you know, do I need four-wheel drive? So once I realized that, of course, once I was like, oh, then I was able to be more specific. Like, oh yeah, in his reality, road conditions are traffic. In my reality, road conditions are the weather. And so I just said to him, so then I was clear without bringing too much of my frustration into the conversation. Right. You know, well, first of all, of course, once we see that, the frustration goes away, right? That's the cool thing. It's like, oh, we just are having separate realities. That's all that's happening right now. The frustration goes away. The frustration went away. And then I was able to say, oh, actually, what I was wondering how warm it is out. I know it's raining. How long will it be raining for? Will it be freezing tonight when I come home? Will it be icy? And it just cleared up. There was no problem anymore, right? It was a very easy conversation. And It's such a small example, but that's what most of our relationships are. They're little tiny things every day.
Oh, yeah.
And we let those build up, right?
People can get so frustrated with their partner,
Yeah.
thinking that their partner is doing it on purpose to upset them, or,
right.
why can't they understand what I'm trying to get across? I hear that from clients all the time.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's simply a different mind. There's a different thinking, there's a different reality going on for each individual.
Yeah.
Makes such a difference because all we're getting is our own thinking.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think, so my husband and I will have been married 19 years this summer. And
19.
it's 19, and it's very easy to get the idea like, I've known this person for so long, they must know me, you know. He must know, he knows that I grew up in Colorado. He must know that road conditions mean, you know, rain and, you know, the weather and what the actual road surface will be like,
Oops.
right? Oh. So it's very easy after living with someone to think that they are privy to our personal thinking, that they can understand or know our personal thinking. Often when we're in a newer relationship, we tend to be more forgiving because we don't expect them to understand so much. But I think it builds up as the years go on, and there's a different expectation about what the other person should or shouldn't know about us.
Right.
Yeah.
So interesting how we put meaning on things that are going to get us in trouble if we didn't know better.
Yes, for sure. I mean, it's those small things that we often, you know, if I didn't know where that had come from this morning, if I had gone with this pile up of thought about, oh, he did it on purpose, he's just trying to be a smart aleck, he did, you know, and then I would have left the house with this kind of upset thinking. And then on my hour-and-a-half drive, guess what I would have been doing the whole drive? Why does he always do that? Why doesn't he understand me? We've been together for 19 years. He should know. He should. And it really was only, you know, a minute of our lives that I would have built up into a huge, big deal and put so much into it where there was truly nothing. Just he had his reality. I have my reality. We always do. And when we don't see it, life gets a lot harder. So much.
In fact, he was really trying to help you.
He was really trying to, you know, when the information he could tell he wasn't giving me the information I wanted. So then he kept trying to find other traffic information, like, oh, that's not what she's looking for, let me. He really wanted to help. He wanted to help us get out the door and be on time and all those things. Yeah. So he would have been in this place of trying to help, and I would have been building up this huge, you know, there's something wrong with him. What doesn't he? Yeah.
What's wrong with the relationship?
What's wrong with
People
the
go there.
relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have turned into something really big, really big.
The only thing wrong with the relationship is negative thinking. It's the first line in the book that fell over the secret. That's funny. The only thing wrong with any relationship is negative thinking in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's why relationships kind of go like this, but you can even it out so much more with this understanding. Like I remember you telling a story, well, I love that story about date night, how that was especially important to you.
Yes.
And can you tell that story again?
Absolutely.
I love that one.
Yeah. So, let's see, I have a 15-year-old son, and he's my eldest. And ever since he was born, I was like, I just want to go on a date night that I don't have to plan. having a child really shifted my reality big time. Like, I was never prepared for this. And I don't have a lot of family. I have no family in the area. Didn't have a big support system. So if my husband and I were ever going to go out, I had to find someone to take care of our son, make all the arrangements, figure out what we were going to do. It was just one more thing that I had to coordinate. And at that time, I was already feeling pretty overwhelmed with just coordinating everything else. And so I had read in a book that there were like different ways that people could feel love and different ways that people gave love. And so like if your partner didn't give you love in the way that you were able to feel it, then there was a mismatch and you wouldn't. And I thought that sounded like a good idea. And you and I were talking a little bit earlier, and they were pointing to separate realities, that my idea of a good time might not be your idea of a good time. And so that piece is really helpful. But I got it in my head that, well, my husband has to plan date night. He has to arrange everything. He has to take me out. Like, then I will feel like he loves me. Then that will be it, right? No. And so I expressed this to him. He knew this wasn't a secret. I was like, yeah, take me out. 12 years passed, and he did not take me out. 12 years. And I was like, this is really simple. Like, we don't even need a babysitter anymore. Like, our kids are old enough. We can just leave them at home. Like, pick something to do. And at that point, that was a few years ago, we were actually in divorce mediation at that point.
Wow.
And the divorce mediator said, come on, just take her out. When I see you 2 weeks from now, I want to hear about your date. Like, this isn't a big deal. She had the same thinking I did. This isn't a big deal. Go do it. So knowing that we were going back and he had like this 2-week deadline, he started trying to plan a date. And I saw him on his phone, he's sitting there like trying to figure out what we could do, doing Google searches and whatever. And I looked at him and he was like sweating. It was like the kind of panic he might exhibit if he were going to the dentist. He was really stressed out. Oh. And so I could see for him, this wasn't just like an easy thing like it was for me. So I asked him, and I just got really curious, like, what is it? It looks like you're having a really hard time. What's going on? And it turns out he thought that he had to get it just right. He thought that everything hinged on getting this date perfect. Oh. And he didn't know what that would look like. He really was clueless. And my husband's a very smart man. I mean, he works on $50 million contracts. He is a smart person. And he coordinates lots of things all the time. But there was something that felt more significant about this. And I said, okay. I said, I will help you if you would like. I will tell you what sounds fun. So we went through that. We ended up going on our date. It was fun. We had a good time. We went back to the mediator. And she's like, great, you did your homework. And then he never did it again. But what he did do is, after that time, he went and actually studied and learned the things that you teach. He learned about, where our experience is coming from and the power that our thoughts have and separate realities. He learned that. And as a result, his mind quieted down so much, he didn't even realize how busy his mind was. Wow. He wasn't able to connect because he had so much. And I don't know if you've talked to people about it yet or not, but how it's not just our thinking, but our thinking comes with feelings that it's tied together. And so he just had this very closed, tight feeling most of the time. So with a busy head and this tight, closed feeling, he wasn't able to connect. It wasn't because you know that when we're open, then the love comes through us. Like you said, we are love, except for the negative thinking that blocks it. And so he had so much of that going on that his love couldn't even come out. And once that happened, once he saw how true that was, then we didn't even need date night anymore. You know, you can just be with someone and have a beautiful feeling between the two of you. And it doesn't even matter where you are or what's going on. You know, it can be doing dishes, going grocery shopping, sitting on the couch. It just doesn't matter anymore. The circumstances don't matter.
Yeah. It's the feeling.
It's the feeling. Yeah. And I love, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the feeling is right there, right? When we're not caught up in our judgment and criticism and wanting it to be different than it is and expectations.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's the only thing that is covering up a nice feeling all the time. It's amazing for people to recognize that.
It's
It's a whole deal changer, you know, it just changes everything. So I didn't hear that before, that your husband actually went to a seminar to learn about this, or?
He did, yes. He
right.
went to a 3-day training in Massachusetts.
Oh, nice.
And my mother had been visiting us at the time. And we were like, he went in as one person on a Friday and came home as a different person on Sunday. She couldn't, I do this work. I've been around this work. I couldn't believe it, and she was blown away. And then what was interesting, I had to watch myself, because it's very easy, like I said, we've been married a long time. It's very easy to think that the person in front of you is this idea you have of them in your head. So I had to see him fresh again. I had to remember to see him fresh, because it was very easy. Oh, he always does that. Oh, that's the way they are. Oh, I mean, we do this with everyone. Who hasn't?
Wow.
And when we realize that who we are changes moment by moment, you know, and our realities and our worlds change moment by moment, then every time you're with someone's new.
Right.
It's always fresh. But for him, that change over that 3 days was so significant. Yeah.
3 days.
3
And
days.
and it was sustainable for him, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what, you know, it's amazing to me when you are able to work with somebody for a consistent amount of time. You know, they're away from their daily activities and cell phones, and
Yeah.
and they're just really focused on looking inside of themselves and looking at how they, as all humans, create a reality through their own thinking.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. So that's so great to hear that. I knew that you were profoundly affected, but I didn't hear before that your husband also did a training, and that really changed things up for him. Did he find a difference in his work life also?
A complete difference. Completely. To the point where
Yeah.
he had been so frustrated with his job because the program he had been working on was pretty much a mess, and he wasn't in the position to do much about it, to do anything about it. And that was where a lot of this tight feeling was coming from, because he was feeling out of control, like he wanted to see things happen differently, and now so not only has he stayed in his job, because he was definitely thinking that he would need to go find a different job. Not only has he stayed, he comes home laughing, and he's just telling me, "You won't believe what these people were doing in the meeting," and he can see them getting wound up in their thoughts, in their reality, but because he knows what's going on, he's able to not make it personal, right? He's kind of removed a little bit, and so he can watch all these different realities bumping up against each other. But since he knows what's happening, it's as the observer, it's not as one of the players who's like ready to fight till the end.
Right.
Yeah, completely different. In fact, he said the most awesome thing to me, I think it was in the beginning of December, and he had said for the first time, with regard to his job, he said, for the first time in my life, instead of looking at what I want to do next in considering it as mitigating risk, like doing the least risky thing, he said, I'm looking at my job and saying, what would be the most inspiring thing?
Oh, wow.
What would be the thing that I'd get excited about? Yeah.
Wow.
So a complete 180 from the way that he'd thought about work before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really remarkable. So he's less stressed as a result.
For sure.
Yeah.
Less stress, which means that he gets to be more present with the whole family. The kids started calling him their new daddy when he came home from that training.
Wow.
Because all of a sudden he was engaged, he was paying attention. He's the one now and he's doing things, like he's the one that gets up at 5:30 in the morning to make our son lunch. You know, that was completely unheard of in our past reality. That wouldn't have happened.
And I have a feeling that you never even discussed him getting up and doing the lunch. It was just the outgrowth of nicer feelings, falling into a better space, a better state of mind. Yeah. It's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, as often as I hear these stories, I know that the transformation that people find for themselves can be so enormous and across all areas of life. And it's not that they're setting goals. No. Nobody is saying, okay, I want to come out of this 3-day training as a new person. Or they just go in with ears to listen, you know, an open mind, and they start seeing the mechanism at work, really. I mean, isn't it like that? Like, you know, when you start considering that we all work the same way, that we're always feeling what we're thinking, you start to like have these little light bulbs go off, these little insights that just settles people down. It's remarkable. It
really, and not only does it work that way, but it continues to work that way.
Right.
Even after, I mean, you've been around this for years and years. I've only been around this since 2013, but it just keeps happening. There's always, it gets easier and easier and easier.
Right.
I've seen it myself, I see it in my husband. I mean, you've seen it in your clients.
Right.
That, you know, once you start to see it, you can't stop.
Right.
You're like,
that's a great point. Exactly. Once you begin to see that life is an inside-out proposition. We're always creating our experience through how we're thinking about things, through the thoughts that are on our mind. And it's so true. Once you see that, the only place for that to go is deeper, is a deeper understanding. It's not like we're clearing this up and that up and that up and that up. You know, it's not a linear sort of thing. It's a depth of understanding of how we operate as humans.
And it makes the day-to-day stuff, like, it's so practical. Because like this morning, that, you know, feeling of frustration I had lasted for maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, it's things that, you know, we're still human.
Yeah.
We still, like everyone else, get caught up in those moments of like, Urgh. But they're just so quick.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, oh, that's all it was. Oh.
Right.
and you're on to the next thing.
Well, we only have like another few moments, but
Oh, okay.
so we're going to start to wrap up. But you know, when you mention that, it's so important for people to see that I think I'll do a whole episode about our feeling state. We can use that as a guide for ourselves. It's an inner compass. Before I had this understanding, I would use my feelings to tell me that I had to take care of the thing I was feeling bad about. So this is a whole different way of recognizing your feelings are letting you know that your thinking is off base. That's not thinking for you to follow. It's so that it's the opposite, really, is how I have come to see it.
Yeah.
So enough of that. Any last words that you'd love for people to know about?
Well, I think they should know about your book if you haven't already told them about that. No, I don't think I have anything that fits in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I know. We
Yeah.
could talk for 3 days, right?
We could sit here for another
3-day
few
seminar.
hours. But I appreciate you inviting me to share my stories and to be with you this afternoon.
Yeah, they're so
you.
great. And you know, Christine, the fact that you have this scientific background is what, it just makes it so special, because people think that this is some kind of esoteric something or other. It's got nothing to do with New Age or anything like that. It is so practical and so grounded in the reality that we're walking in here on planet Earth. And so the fact that you and your husband are both scientific engineers just proves the point that it doesn't matter what walk of life you are in and how you're experiencing life currently. There's a better place to go. There's an understanding of how we operate that changes things dramatically. And that's the secret of love.
For sure. And it is so logical. I mean, you know, most people are walking around with the paradigm, this event happens and then I feel this way. This event happened. But if you look at that, that's not always true. Someone pulls out in front of me in traffic. Sometimes I feel upset. Sometimes someone pulls out of me. I'm not paying attention and I don't care. So this is actually the most logical thing I've ever come across. Like, the thing that's true is that I'm always feeling my thinking. Doesn't get much more logical than that.
Well, thank you again so much for
you.
making the trip to join us. It's been wonderful.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks so much, Lori.